You're the owner of a small business, which means you're also the tech guy, and HR, and personal assistant, and head honcho, and intern. You could use another pair of hands, like the experts you'll find at Verizon Small Business Days, April 21st through 27th. Get a free tech check, special deals, and more. Call 1-800-483-4428 or visit verizon.com/smallbusiness to book your appointment. Verizon Business.
Reality radio for a really great future. We're talking real money.
Hi, this is Tom Cock. Welcome to Talking Real Money. We all want sure things in our lives, right? Things you can count on. You know, those things like, well, the Swallows returning to Capistrano, death and taxes, pretty well count on those. And then when you send that email, you click send and noticed you already made the mistakes. You know, those sure things. Well, in the financial world, there are sure things and then there are sure things. And I want to thank our friend Larry Swedroe, who every year reviews the year's sure things for the previous year. We'll talk about a few of them. I mean, and these include things like market predictions, interest rate predictions, hot investment ideas, things you got to be in. It's so obvious it's going to work. And remember, these are only going back 1 year. So Larry, the prolific author, of course, and his wonderful association with Buckingham, he's done some terrific work with research. He's always writing, and he's really trying to help you get all of this right. So Larry, for the last 10 years, takes a year and then looks back at the things that were sure things at the beginning of the year. And the ones for 2020, I'm not going to go through all of them, but a few of them. For example, the sure thing was U.S. economic growth would slow. 2019, we had GDP growth of 2.3. The sure thing, according to the Federal Reserve survey of professional forecasters, was growth of 1.8% in 2020. And of course, 1 year growth in 2020 was a decline of 3.5%. No surprise there, but it certainly was a surprise to the people that made those predictions a little over a year ago. And then, in keeping with that theme, corporate profit growth would be strong. That was the prediction. S&P 500 companies' earnings will reach a cumulative $178 per share, up from an estimated $162 for 2019, about a 10% increase. And of course, the year is going to end somewhere with a drop for the consensus profit growth down to about $136 a share. That's a drop of 16%. So there's two sure things that were wrong. Again, I'm not going to go through all of them. And you can look up Larry's wonderful work at Advisor Perspectives. It's available to the public. One of the other ones he mentioned was it was going to be easy for REITs to make a lot of money, real estate investment trusts. Investors should overweight them in 2020. Well, how did that turn out? Vanguard's real estate index fund, Admiral Shares, lost 4.7%, way underperforming the Vanguard 500 index fund, which returned 18.4. So REITs turned out to be a very bad idea. Who knows what they're going to do in the future, because who knows what offices are going to look like, or malls, or any of those other things that REITs own. Here's another interesting one, and this comes up a lot. Which type of stocks should you own in any particular year? Well, the last few months, by the way, small stocks have been on a huge roll, way better than large caps. But a year ago, well, people said large will continue to outperform small, as they had really for the decade. Harvard Business Review saying large corporations are more and more likely to maintain their dominant positions, while small corporations are less and less likely to become big and profitable. Well, the small cap index fund at Vanguard returned 19.1, and that did underperform the Vanguard large cap index fund, which gained 21. So the sure bet was there on that one. But as a whole, fewer than half of the things, looking back over the last 10 years, that were sure things that you just so obvious, have turned out to come true. They certainly have not. And so what do you do with that information? Well, here's what I think you do. You think about the sure things for 2021, right? And here are a couple of them. Number one, and because they have a horrible track record, economists will get it wrong. And remember what they're saying today. Strong recovery in the second half of the year. I don't think you can count on that. Number two, the people that make sports bets, the predictors, the sporting lines, they'll get it wrong too. Here's number three. Being diversified, keeping your costs low will be boring but successful. I think we can pretty well look back over the last 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and years beyond and say that has been kind of a sure thing. Being widely diversified, knowing your tolerance for risk and keeping your costs low has been a slow but steady way to increase your wealth. We continue to believe in that at Talking Real Money as well. I think there's only one other sure thing you can count on. You really can't be sure of anything. Now, all of that said, here's one thing we hope you will be sure of, and that is joining us on Saturday, February 20th, for Retire Meet America. Truly wonderful speakers, including an interview with David Booth. The gifted Paul Merriman will be there. Learn about all things retirement, how to build a retirement portfolio, how to create retirement income, how to get the most from Social Security, all of those things that are critical to a wonderful third act. You can register right now. It's free. It's all virtual. Retire Meet. That's MEET.com, retiremeet.com. And by the way, the aforementioned Larry Swedrow's terrific book, Successful and Secure Retirement, which I think is the really absolute best book to have for retirement. There'll be an opportunity to get a complimentary copy that day on Saturday, February 20th, Retire Meet America. Go register right now for this terrific, and it's about 5 hours. You're going to be in your computer, watching it in your pajamas if you want, as Don would say. I think it's an event well worth your time. Hope you join us that day. Glad you joined us for the podcast. This is Tom Cock. Thanks for joining us here on Talking Real Money.
Talking Real Money. We hope you realize that the information provided on Talking Real Money is for educational and hopefully enjoyable purposes only. Providing personalized financial planning or investing advice takes time, so please consult with a really good fee-only fiduciary investment, tax, or legal advisor. We know a good one. Investing must always involve risk. In other words, you can and probably will lose money at times. Also, as much as you want it, no one can accurately, consistently predict the future. So past performance doesn't tell you a darn thing about what the future will bring. Unlike many other programs that say something similar, Talking Real Money is not trying to get you to buy or sell any financial products or securities. Instead, the program is provided as a public service by Vestory, a fee-only registered investment advisor. Thanks for listening, and please visit TalkingRealMoney.com for more information and disclosures. That's a wrap.